Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SafeHouse. I'm Jeff Edwards, co-founder of SafeHouse Initiative and your host for today's podcast. Enjoy. Demonstrable levels of cybersecurity are rapidly becoming essential, not optional, in order to conduct business. Frameworks, standards, and certifications are intended to make our organizations cyber secure. However, they can be confusing and potentially overwhelming to a point where nothing gets implemented. This episode, we are very fortunate to have Ryan Ettridge, co-founder and CEO of CyberCert, to share his insights and lay out a more practical way forward. Ryan, welcome to the Safe House.
Hey, Jeff, thank you. Kindly joining you from Brisbane.
Hey, it's your first time to the podcast, and I'm real excited to have you because it's going to be a real interesting conversation. We've talked about, the confusion that exists out there, but I think you are going to bring a tremendous amount of clarity to this whole area and really help this audience a lot. So why
Mm.
don't you start with maybe your journey?
I've been in cybersecurity for almost 21 years, and
Mm.
it's only about this time every year where I go, oh, there's another year. I've been saying 20 for the last, 10 months, and next thing it's the end of the year. So 21 years in cybersecurity, and the first 18 years of those, Jeff, was in enterprise cybersecurity. And like anything, uh, you don't necessarily plan to be in cybersecurity for 21 years. In fact, when I started my career 21 years ago, the university degrees, they didn't have any majors in
Mm.
cybersecurity, right? It was
Yeah.
really just this desire to protect things in the world, and the electives and majors that I fell into were cybersecurity. I just had a natural,
Mm.
let's say, a talent and pull into that. So enterprise cybersecurity, quite a techie background. Uh, I got all of the technology certifications for cybersecurity, which were the big brands, the Cisco's, the Microsofts, Blue Coats, and RSA's, and a bunch of others
Yeah. Yeah.
back in the day, and found a passion for it, got good at it, and when you get good at something, you start to get noticed. And so I moved from an operational role in cybersecurity with an enterprise as a network administrator, security administrator, and then because people somehow, Jeff, they trusted what I was saying, I ended up getting quite good at sales, and so moved into
Mm.
a systems
Mm.
integrator or professional services organization as my next career as a security engineer with what was called Dimension Data back
Mm.
in the day. It's
Mhm.
now NTT, one of the biggest service providers in the world. So got good and could sell cybersecurity, not intentionally trying to sell it, but I could convince people that this was the right way to go to protect your organizations and your people. And because I was good at that in a professional services organizations, I got some good sales numbers. So then moved into a sales role and a practice manager's role. And next thing, I'm on the executive leadership program for, Masters of Business Administration, and then took
Mm.
over the
Mm.
practice
Yeah.
role for that part of the organization, which then landed me a partner role with PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Oh,
So
nice. Yeah.
I was quite young. So PwC partner at 31 years old, and
Well,
people in that
yeah.
organization can take 20, 30 years. It's their dream job to get to a partner. And somehow I'd fallen into this very, very senior, very executive role, and grew the team from 3 people to 45 people
Mm.
over
Wow.
5 years. And yeah, became this natural talent to grow businesses. But Jeff, at that point, I was facing a period of burnout.
Yeah.
I'm one of 800 partners, and it was really challenging to work out what was going on because I found out I was addicted to work. This was
Yeah.
quite a challenge for me, which was, I
Yeah.
can't switch off. I'm really good at this. I'm super
Yeah.
talented at growing a business, but the relationships failing outside of work, and, health is taking a back seat and all of this stuff. It's like, I really don't know how to navigate that as a
Mm.
technical expert. So that then shifted into an executive coaching career. I jumped out of PricewaterhouseCoopers after 7 years there, started a small business, which was, it's still now become the side hustle, which is called Unstuckable. That business is an
Unstuckable?
Unstuckable, yeah, yeah. So that's then this coaching business that I made available to anyone across the world. It's now built into an app. And the idea
Hmm.
was, I wished I had have had that 15 or 20 years earlier, right? It's like, why couldn't people tell me that there's this inner game that we also need to work on as people.
Hmm.
It's not just about the external performance that we have, it's the inner game.
Yeah.
In transition a couple of years later, Jeff, 3 years since I left PwC, I landed in the small business space. My whole
Hmm.
cybersecurity career was focused on enterprises and helping
Yeah.
enterprises solve their problems. Then come across this whole leadership realm that was missing. So landed that and worked on myself for a little while. And then got drawn back into the small business game because the small
Hmm.
business has a very different, uh, obviously a very different structure, but the biggest challenge for the small business, they don't have the resources of the enterprise,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And and
Yeah.
and so all of the mindsets and approach and leadership courses and executive MBA courses and whatever else, the small business isn't ready for that.
Yeah.
So a good friend of mine, the co-founder of the business we lead now, he said, "Hey Ryan, I think we need your help to come and help us take this small business cybersecurity mission to the world." And so here we are, 3 years after leaving the enterprise space and doing a bit of self-reflection and waiting in this space, has
Yeah.
just gone, all right, we now have this mission to take to the millions and millions of small businesses across the world that, it needs a different mindset. So the inner game, the outer game has kind of landed me where I am.
Yeah, so basically, you've taken this enterprise experience that you had and education and everything you learned there with your discipline you learned and process at Price Waterhouse
Mm.
Coopers, and you've then basically taken and applied this to a small business orientation, knowing that there's a delta between the two, but taking some of the best elements and applying it to small business. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, it is distilling some of the best elements of the enterprise, but it's also bringing into the fore some ideas that just never existed before,
Yeah.
right? One of the big threads that is different for a small business versus the enterprise is that the small businesses make up, whatever stat you look at, 90 to 97% of the economies across the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Now that is trillions and trillions of dollars, right?
Hmm.
But it's hundreds of millions of small businesses. So the difference we have now is scale, right? It's not
Yeah.
a one to many in terms of fixing lots of systems and people in a major enterprise. It's actually an opportunity to copy and paste ideas across millions and millions of small businesses. So
Yeah.
now you need this community mindset,
Yep.
right? Now it's about togetherness and how do we move lots and lots of people towards a common goal and a common vision, not necessarily going from this top-down, board CEO approach. Now we
Yeah.
need to go to lots and lots and lots of CEOs. So how do we do
Yeah.
that? The
Yep.
biggest challenge that solves that is with community.
Yeah. Well, and then taking that one step further into cybersecurity, kind of our subject for the day, is then how do you help small businesses in particular to get them to a point where they can actually demonstrate consistently to everyone that they're on the same par as maybe the people they do business with. So for everybody's similar cybersecurity levels, if you will, because that
Yeah.
is that been kind of the challenge? Is that the challenge you're cracking, I guess, is the best way to
Yeah.
put it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if scale's the first one, it's like how do you reach all of these
Right.
small businesses and individuals, right? The second thing is how do you create this common language?
Yes.
Because cybersecurity is as subjective as anything, right? You can talk to one master of cybersecurity in Australia versus the US, and they'll say similar things. They'll have the same
Yeah.
ideas, but they might argue over what's the most basic thing to do, which is the point of standards. So
Right.
cybersecurity standards remove that subjectivity. It's like, well, let's say here's an international standard because small businesses are international. So if you can come up with a common language, a common rule book, that's the idea of cybersecurity standards. And there hasn't been one until now, which is SMB 1001 as a standard. The idea is that a small business can focus on the common rules that they need to follow without having to think about it, because the small business's job is not to become cybersecurity experts. And this is part of the mistake, Jeff, is that the approach with enterprises is they have the resources and desire to maintain expertise. In fact, it's legislated. It's part of law in some countries that they have expertise in not just literacy, but it's expertise. But the small business, they're never going to have those resources 9 times out of 10. And when they do, guess who steals them? The enterprise. So the small business wants to know that cybersecurity is being done, but they don't want to become experts. So the way to remove that subjectivity away from the small business and allow them to focus on what they do, which is running their business, is through standards, right?
Right.
The second part to that, though, is certification.
Okay.
So certification becomes the demonstrable evidence that the standard has been met. So now with a standard and a certification, there's actually this ability to scale across millions and millions of small businesses and have a common rule book that lots of this community power can also follow. The people that the small business rely on can now follow the same rule book as the cybersecurity experts, and they can go and engage someone that they know has followed the rules that would demonstrate to the small business they've done it. So standards and certification, Jeff, seems to be the instrument that is taking grip for small businesses to be able to move forward with confidence.
So what you said was the SMB 1001 is the standard, and then you have certification level or certifications that you go against that, and together that is a stable way in which you can measure cybersecurity on a global basis. It's a common language that can be used. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and yeah, go on. Exactly.
So what about, here in the States, NIST, you got CIS, you've got all these other, acronyms that people hear about, and they start to glaze over at some point, and they say, okay, I've got controls, 3 controls here. I got MFA, I got this, I got that. It's a hodgepodge. Is that a fair assessment? And then how does CIS and NIST and all these other ones work into that?
Yeah. There's this meme or joke that says, "Oh, we've got another standard to rule all of the other standards." It's like, I know how we fix the standards problem. We create a 19th one. That'll fix it. It's like, but unfortunately, and they all are born out of this idea that something's missing. So let's create a standard, right? But CIS is quite technical. It's beautiful. I love the standard. It relies on government funding as well, which I think it's having a couple of challenges at the moment. CMMC in the States is government standard requirement. You must do that. NIST is a framework. You can't certify against NIST. You can't certify against CIS. ISO is a certification standard for enterprises. Again, it actually has written into the standard that you have resources that know how to interpret it, which again means it's not designed for the small business. So we do have all of these other standards, and they do have their places. And where a small business has a contractual obligation or a regulatory obligation, they must do that. Now, there's privacy obligations as well, and there's this regulation, the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, which applies to really any small business that's processing European personal information. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. So there is a standards and a regulatory landscape, which is why people can make careers out of trying to interpret these things, right? But for the small business, there actually hasn't ever been a cybersecurity standard specifically designed for them, with them at the center. And in the same way, it's not just a matter of reducing the enterprise standards and saying, okay, well, here's the essentials that you need to go and do, if they don't have the resources to interpret the essentials. The small business needs to rely on the experts. And I use this analogy, Jeff, the washing machine operator versus the technician, right? The small business, if you can imagine, is the cybersecurity and digital operator, but they are not the technician.
Yeah.
All of those other standards are designed for the technician. SMB
Ah,
1001 was designed specifically for the operator that they can give to technicians, know what their role is, and they can engage technicians that also know how to interpret that standard. So it's become not just the rule book, but actually the mechanism, the framework, the entire operating model by design that encourages a community of thousands and thousands of technicians to go and now support the operator. So it's kind of like we've removed the
mm.
gap between technician and operator, and it's why there's hundreds of technicians now already standing by to help the small business with this new standard.
How pervasive is this standard currently, Ryan?
Yeah, so it's taking off in the Five Eyes countries at the moment, which is
Hmm.
Australia, New Zealand, US, UK, and Canada. And really, that's just a strategy
Yeah.
to uh, open it up to those that are actually ready to adopt it. But more and more, the Southeast Asian regions are very interested. The African regions are very interested. And the business that I lead, I've just appointed a head of growth in the UK as well, because the United Kingdom has what's called the Cyber Essentials certification, and that's a government standard and a government certification for suppliers to government. But it only focuses on the most fundamental technical controls, which is beautiful. You must shut the front door to the most
Yeah.
common technical threats. But again, when you go from Cyber Essentials to ISO, there's this huge gap. It's like, how does a small business move from the essentials to a more maturity, a higher maturity? And that's the point of SMB 1001. So it's really taking grip, Jeff, across the world, because it is the only international insurable certifiable standard that crosses borders. And it's got this universal kind of essence about it that when we help the small business, it really seems that we are helping the entire world,
Yeah.
because if they're making up 97% of the economy, then you help the SMB, everyone wins. So it really seems to be copy and paste.
Yeah. So are there certain, well, there are different types of small businesses, that deal differently, obviously, right? And so are there
Mm.
different levels of certification? I assume it's a one type of a certification, but it's just different levels. Maybe you have more controls that you tick a box off of, or you do more things. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because one of the challenges we seem to have as humans is we categorize everything into one, nominalization, which is, oh, well,
Yeah.
you're a small business, it's a one size fits all. That, if 97%, it's 300 million small businesses, they're not the same, right? There's
Yeah.
the
Right.
hairdresser in
Yeah.
Vanuatu, there's the dog groomer in Arizona. There's the 50-seat legal firm in New York, and
Yeah.
and so the range of small to medium businesses is really anyone that turns over revenue in a particular space. And
Yeah.
it usually caps out at, let's say, 2, 3, 400 seats, and about 100 million US dollars tends to then move the category into the next kind of medium to large
Yeah.
enterprise.
Yeah.
So you're right. Even one standard actually has to have maturity levels to meet the small business where they're at. And so the SMB 1001 standard has 5 maturity levels in it.
Mm.
And the first level is really to be accessible to anyone with an internet connection, right? It
Mm.
includes the
Mm.
the most common controls that would, shut the front door, I say, to the most common internet-borne threats.
So
The
it could be
second
good for
level,
a micro,
yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but a micro business would be a target for that. So
yeah,
you're just a one person consulting shop. That's probably a good start, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I use the term the hairdresser or the flower shop owner. You've got a point of sale system, but you don't have too many complicated or sophisticated systems, but you,
Mm.
you definitely
Oh, okay.
have
Yeah.
some personal information and financial information about your business. You need to do your
Mm.
taxes. And so,
Mm.
yeah, there are some fundamental, like every time we see threat reports released from the huntresses, the Arctic wolves, whatever else, they always come out and they say, wow, we got these amazing advanced threats. These AI powered threats are coming out. But you know what they say? They say, actually, AI is just powering the old school threats. Now
Mm.
they're doing the old school threats walking through the front door, which means you don't have patched systems, you didn't do your backups, you
Yeah.
had really weak passwords. All of the things that have been compromised for the last 15, 20 years are
Yeah.
now like amplified with AI. So the idea with that first level is to shut the front door to the most common threats. And then the second level, Jeff, is what we say is cyber insurable. Because
Mm.
now there's 14 or 15 controls in the next version of the standard. Now these are the most common controls for small businesses that if they tick those boxes, they now
Yeah.
pre-qualify for cyber insurance. And the reason for that is these are the most common controls that the ransomwares, the business email compromise, and those sorts of threats that you want to be insured, now the windows are shut and locked as well. And we know there's a report that's just come out this week which says if you have multi-factor authentication, for example, the ransomware actors are probably going to move on to the next small business.
Yeah.
It's too hard. They move
It's a
on.
crime.
So
It's a
it's
crime
like,
of opportunity. It's a crime of
yeah,
opportunity and ease, right? Yeah.
yeah, that's right. It's like you don't need to be the fastest beast in the herd, but just not the slowest, right?
All you have to do is outrun me. Is that what you're saying, Ryan?
You got it. Exactly. So, that's the idea of bronze and silver, or level one and level two in the standard. And then it gets progressively more
Yeah.
sophisticated for the higher risk small businesses, maybe the legal firms with sensitive information.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the idea. It's multi-tiered to meet the small business where they're at anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you probably get better cyber rates and you get cyber insurance and better terms. You probably also expedite your third-party risk management, in terms of qualifying to be a partner in a supply chain somewhere.
True. Yeah, all of those things, right? And of course, the more recognition that a certification has, then the more value it has. So all of those players in the marketplace that you just mentioned that are
Yeah.
adopting this give it more value, right? And for the small business, they have suppliers as well. It seems to be this, if we just go after our third parties, which from an enterprise perspective is generally, again, they focus on their most high risk enterprise suppliers. And the questionnaires that are provided to those high risk enterprise suppliers are either, hey, show us your ISO or SOC 2 certification, or answer
Yeah.
this million-page questionnaire,
Yeah.
right? The same million-page questionnaire is also given to the small business suppliers. So unfortunately, enterprise, what you've created, and I'm to blame here. I used to write these things, right? It's to say,
Uh,
hey, sorry, SMB, you're actually creating the opposite outcome of what you're intending for that small business. A, because they don't know how to answer it, right? And B, it's just not fit for purpose for them anyway. So why would you make them take 4 to 6 months to onboard as a supplier when the questions you're asking them are not even relevant, right? So
yeah.
what it also does for the supply chain is it removes the subjectivity, again, removes the subjectivity away from the small business. When you can rely on that cert, you know exactly what's been certified against because it's
Yeah.
written into a standard. And do you know what the
Yeah.
challenge is for the small businesses in supply chain? It's scale again.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of small businesses for the biggest banks in the US and across the world is that there's not enough people and systems and even AI agents yet to be able to assess all of the small businesses in this direct supply chain and the fourth parties.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now this scale thing has been solved again because standards and certifications.
So in a way, you're on a mission of sorts. I mean, this is really more you're advocating a movement towards a common standard that can be anywhere around the world. You got it in 5 countries, heading to 20 to 100 to 150, close to 200, well, 195 countries
Mm.
around the world. And so, how do you advocate that? How do you get that movement moving around the world? And you can do every podcast in the world 10 times. And how are you going after this? Just curious.
Yeah, to come up with the business model that exists today would, I've not seen it in any textbook that you would see at university, right? Because it's not about trying to find a business model. It's about leading with a vision. It
Yeah.
is about being 100% mission aligned. And
Yeah.
quite naturally, the natural order of this community powered vision is that people align to it because it serves them as well. So if my job is I lead the certification body, right? I didn't
Hmm.
introduce that at the start. So uh, I'm the CEO of the certification organization against the standard. And
Hmm.
cool, that's the certification body, but it's actually the community of implementers as well.
Hmm.
So the community of implementers are the managed service providers, the IT providers, and we've actually created this community of people that are driving this movement themselves because now they have an instrument that they can talk to their small businesses about. So
Yeah.
you see the enterprise now has an instrument they can use for their suppliers, which are the small
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah.
The small businesses now have an instrument they can use with their IT providers. The IT providers now have an instrument they can talk and sell cybersecurity to their small businesses because the insurers recognize the instrument, because the government agencies recognize the instrument. So it's really become uh, my role is really this facilitator or
Hmm.
or a channel to drive this mission, which is absolutely crystal clear to me, is to drive this mission to help the small business, but 100% facilitate everybody else to win.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the fifth there's one other entity here, Jeff, which is the technology providers, the
Yeah.
Microsofts, the
Yeah.
Huntress, the Coros, the others. Their role is, of course, to create the fit for purpose technologies that work for small businesses. And do you know what? Now certification is the instrument that they can use to say we deliver certifiable programs of work.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
weirdly, this certification is not just about ticking boxes. It's become the instrument to facilitate a community of people that are working towards a common vision. So
Yeah.
all I have to do is continue to hold that essence, listen to people, what's going to work for you, what sort of training do you need, how's the platform working for you, feed that back to the standards body to say, hey, how come we don't have awareness training at level one, and it's up to them to work out whether it's going to fit the hairdresser in Vanuatu or not. And so uh, y y really, I just listen to what's needed and then
Yeah.
advocate this as if it is not Ryan doing this, it is a universal vision. My job is simply to facilitate it.
Well, Ryan, you are inspirational. I really didn't expect to be inspired, but I love your message and love your mission.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I just have to get out of the way is what I say to people. I can see this as crystal clear as anything I've ever seen before, and it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you just connect dots, and I'm like, okay, I'll connect it. If I need to turn up to an event, here I am.
Well, I tell you what, I think the Australian accent's working in your favor, buddy, because it just sounds credible to me as an American.
Oh, that's good. That's the first time I've heard that as as the actual, as the motivator is like, is this Aussie guy? Uh,
Well, I've spent a lot of time in your fair country, but so anyway, if you had one thing that our audience could do today to kind of help them with their cybersecurity position, what would that one recommendation be that they can just do today?
well, you can. Uh, there's what's called a health check or
Yeah.
a selector tool which helps a small business uh, do a small baseline gap assessment as to where they are. Uh,
Hmm.
there's a few of those on government websites. There's one
Hmm.
on our website on the CyberCert website. You can land on the homepage and you can
Hmm.
do a baseline as to what would be the most helpful level of certification to get. My recommendation is to do that, not because certification is the immediate answer for every small business necessarily today, but it does show you the fundamental things that you should be doing if you have an internet connection, right? And with that, it gives the immediate direction as to who to go and talk to as well. So instead of giving you the manual and the playbook that you're really not going to be able to interpret, it says, hey, here's the 3 things you might have a gap with, and here's who you can go and talk to go and help them get fixed. So that's my recommendation. We've made the tools available for people which align to the government health checks and in every one of the jurisdictions I mentioned before. That's my recommendation, Jeff.
Well, Ryan, it's an absolute pleasure to have you, and quite inspiring, as I said before. Thank you, and I hope you come back again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be on.
That's our episode. We greatly appreciate you joining us and hope it was a wonderful learning experience. I'm your host, Jeff Edwards, and remember, be safe, be resilient, and be kind to each other. For more educational materials, please visit us at safehouseinitiative.org. All materials are free from tracking, promotions, memberships, or fees of any kind. SafeHouse Initiative is an all-volunteer organization.